but a much more messy, without those clear borders. And so you can also see that in a number of media reports if you look closely. And one of these ones was that there was a reconnaissance platoon which was in Afghanistan. And these guys were all white, and they had this big regimental flag, and it had two of these on it. And I mean, the SS insignia. So, I mean, you can see that, I mean, okay, so it wasn't far from what he was saying. And I mean, you can see that divide in the US is getting more and more bitter. I mean, it's not reconcilable, I mean, I believe at the moment, because it's being drummed up by each side, neither side of which is prepared to step down. And you can see that at the executive and the legislative branch of the US government. I mean, the conflict, I mean, just look at the Mueller report, the FBI, these kinds of things. The whole system is in an interesting meltdown, if we want, yeah.
Other questions? Kimsenin soru olmadığı için ben de fırsat bulmak istiyorum, kendi sorumu sormak istiyorum. Ukrayna ile ilgili. I'd like to use an opportunity to ask you also a question about the so-called Ukrainian crisis, which we in Ukraine prefer to call the Russian aggression against Ukraine. How would events may develop, and what we can expect in the future from this crisis? Will it be, can it be resolved in any way, or actually what future of this crisis? In your vision, how can you?
Actually, what we see in Ukraine is quite similar to what you see in Syria, but reversing the roles of the players there. It's what you would call in geopolitical terms a shatter belt. And a shatter belt is where a weakened or divided country has two or more actors that are vying for influence and power over that particular country. And using quite similar strategies. For instance, Euromaidan, Revolution of Dignity, what you wish to call it. I mean, it was a form of colour revolution, and certainly when the SVU caught that tape between Nuland and Fiat, this was a definite indicator that the US was involved in that particular case, which is definitely not in Ukraine's interests objectively. So, because this is about these geopolitical regional things as well. And, well, I mean, if we go back even a few years earlier to 2008, before the August events, I mean, it was made clear at that stage that from the Russian perspective, there were two red lines, because they use this red line concept after, I mean, before Obama in Syria, and says those red lines were Georgia and Ukraine. And yeah, I think that it's not a good situation at all. There are too many vested interests to keep this conflict going on both sides. I mean, whether it's those proxy forces which are controlling Donbass region, or whether it is those interests which are steering of what Kiev can and cannot do. I mean, it's the meat and the sandwich for Ukraine, and it's very. I mean, it's very much an object of these events. I mean, if we look just before the ATO, the anti-terrorist operation, was declared. I mean, you had the US head of the CIA visit Kiev, and then just shortly afterwards came out with this brand. And then when Yanukovych was deposed, then you had events in Crimea. So it's one side does this, the other side does that, one side does this, the other side does that. And I mean, looking at what is happening, I mean, there are different stories about even Ukrainian politicians who benefit financially because they have finger in both pies. And it's not in their subjective interests to end this conflict anytime soon, because if they do end it, then they lose financially. I mean, this impacts on Ukraine in the worst possible ways. I mean, in terms of standard of living, all of these different things. I mean, you've got people who are escaping the draft because they don't believe, I mean, they might not like Russia and what Russia is doing, but they do not want to die for it because they do not trust their own political or military leadership. So, I mean, it's a horrible situation to see. I mean, I've been in these areas before the conflict was there, and I mean, I've gone and I've noticed quite a change in the mood of people who live in these situations. So, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not bringing any optimism, but it's not an optimistic situation from any side. It's these subjective vested interests which are driving this. These are the things that need to be dealt with before anyone can talk about resolving those issues. I mean, the whole idea that the rebellion, which became the ATO, has no fundamental basis. Well, yes, they do, because looking at Ukraine, it's not a homogeneous country. It's very heterogeneous, and when someone from Donbass who has a more, well, to call it undiplomatically, kind of Soviet mindset, here's some from Western Ukraine with this much more high-level nationalistic outlook, saying something. I mean, how do you reconcile this to begin with? So I'm just a big dark cloud.
But Putin tries to do that, tries to reconcile all of Ukraine. Now, the latest elections, of course, they show that Ukraine united against that. They have chosen one new candidate, and they're expecting miracles from that candidate, but it's not in his own, like, to change the situation.
Okay, so if we, well, I mean, if Putin does solve Ukraine's situation, maybe like Obama, he'll get the Peace Prize. But, I mean, before this, I mean, the whole thing was predictable that Zelensky would win, not because people voted for him, but they voted against Poroshenko, because Poroshenko is offering more war, more hardship, no change. People don't want that. They want positive change. And yeah, I mean, this is what the whole thing is about, and what I talk about, breaking those vested interests and have something actually for Ukrainian people rather than for Ukrainian political leadership or those foreign backers on both sides.
We will continue, and our second guest is from China, Peking University History Department, an expert in Turkey, in Turkish affairs, and especially in Turkish history of the 20th century. And he's going to make a presentation on Turkish foreign policy strategy in post-Cold War time period. Professor Dr. Tao Zhang. I'm sorry for pronouncing Chinese, is not impossible for many people. So please, he will share with us his presentation on Turkish foreign policy, dimensions of Turkish foreign policy.
Özür dilerim, sunumu İngilizce ile hazırladım. Dolayısıyla I will speak English later. Before I start, I would like to thank the Türk Dünyası Institute of Turkey University for inviting me to this workshop, and also this is my second time visit to this beautiful city since 2008. The main points that I would like to make here today are from two of my articles that published respectively in 2015 and 2016. The first one is the same title in today's presentation, which is a historical analysis on Turkey's multilateralism of foreign policy. And the other one is a more recent one, which is Turkey Hayal, a Turkey Dream, which is a counterpart to the China Dream. Turkey Hayal and the China-Turkish cooperation under the Belt Road Initiative, which is published in 2016. And what I'm going to talk is that changes in the internal and external environments of Turkey that have jointly contributed to the shifting or transformation of the Turkish foreign policy since the end of the Cold War. The early republic period, Turkey had maintained a certain kind of isolationism in terms of the foreign policy. During the 1920s, 1940s, I would like to say, Turkey skillfully managed the balanced policies of, as you said, the Barış things, peace at home and peace in the world, set by Atatürk. And during the Cold War period, before the late 1980s, obviously, although there were some